So that's the guy that Joe Biden just sprung from prison, the international arms dealer who's arming terror groups and drug cartels. Now, keep in mind, the same administration that did that is simultaneously calling for the arrest and imprisonment of American citizens who have handgun magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. So by any measure, it was a very costly prisoner swap. Certainly from Paul Whelan's perspective, it was. Earlier today, amazingly, Whelan spoke to a CNN reporter from the penal colony where he's being held south of Moscow. Listen to him. Ah, poor guy. I don't understand why I'm still sitting here, he said. You can imagine how he feels. So the former Marine, who's been there for 4 years already, gets left behind in Russia, while the celebrity athlete gets busted with hash oil, is championed by her celebrity media friends like Gayle King, and is home in just months. I mean, that's what happened. And it seems like a metaphor for how America under Joe Biden is working at this point. But no, says Joe Biden, we had no choice but to take Brittany Griner over Paul Whelan. Putin demanded that. Watch Biden.
We never forgot about Brittany. We've not forgotten about Paul Whelan, who's been unjustly detained in Russia for years. This was not a choice of which American to bring home.
This was not a choice of which American to bring home. Really? Oh, but it clearly was a choice. And we know it was a choice because the first accounts of the prisoner swap with Russia said it was a choice. Earlier today, Andrea Mitchell of NBC, this is someone who's been in Washington covering news for more than 50 years, someone who is deeply supportive of the Joe Biden administration, contributed to a story that contained this line, quote, "The Kremlin gave the White House the choice of either Griner or Whelan, or none." So Mitchell's piece attributed this fact to a, quote, senior U.S. official. It was not a guess, it was sourced. And then, as with the early reporting on Paul Pelosi last month, that account was scrubbed and sanitized. And the new version of the NBC story assures us that, quote, "The Kremlin ultimately gave the White House the choice of either Griner or no one." In other words, Joe Biden's version of events is now perfectly in sync with the official NBC News version of events. Of course. Now, we missed this. A writer on Substack called Jordan Schachtel noticed it, and we're glad that he did. This kind of thing happens all the time in Washington, constantly, usually without the public knowing that it happened. So at this point, we can assume the obvious. The Biden administration chose Brittany Griner over Paul Whelan, the basketball player over the Marine facing 16 years. There was only room for one in the lifeboat, and the Marine got left behind. Well, why'd they make that choice? Well, you should know that Whelan is a Trump voter, and he made the mistake of saying so on social media. He's paying the price for that now. Brittany Griner is not. She's got very different politics. Brittany Griner despises the United States. She's been very vocal about that. This country is so repellent and immoral that 2 years ago she said, quote, "I honestly feel we should not play the national anthem during our basketball season." She hates the country so much she doesn't want to hear its anthem. That's the kind of position that gets you rewarded by Joe Biden. Hate America? Perfect. We'll free the guy who sold weapons to drug cartels to get you out early. So there's that. And then there's the matter of identity, which is central to equity. Brittany Griner is not white, and she's a lesbian. Now, those facts might seem irrelevant to you. We hope they do seem irrelevant, because they are. But they're not irrelevant to the White House press secretary. In the view of the White House press secretary, those are essential qualifications for a prisoner swap. Watch.
Became to either bring Brittany home or no one. As the president said this morning, he will never stop working to secure Paul's release and return home. and he will not give up. On a personal note, Brittany is more than an athlete, more than an Olympian. She is an important role model and inspiration to millions of Americans, particularly the LGBTQI plus Americans and women of color. She should never have been detained by Russia.
So there's Joe Biden's press secretary telling you that Brittany Griner is important because she's a lesbian woman of color. And by the way, so am I. That's what she said. Now, how perverse is that? You hear that kind of stuff all the time, but how perverse is it? Well, imagine a press secretary from the last administration, say Sean Spicer, pausing in the middle of a briefing to tell you that, quote, on a personal note, it is thrilling when a straight white man gets out of prison. What would you think of that? You'd probably see that as an offense against the idea of the rule of law, against the idea of a country where we're all treated equally because we're all citizens. But liberals don't see it that way because they don't believe in abstract principles. So they're 100% behind that idea. Here's Van Jones on CNN.
It just shows this president got it done. He cared enough about this individual person to get her home. It was shocking I think for young Americans to see an icon like that snatched, locked up, but you don't have, and what you can't allow to happen is to have a black female icon treated like garbage and America do nothing about it. Something was done about it and people are going to be proud about that.
Oh, so it's not that you can't have an American mistreated by a foreign government. You can't have a black female icon mistreated by a foreign government. See that?